my name is Dani and welcome to my channel, Current Chapter. Today I want to talk to you about the books I read in March. So let's talk about books. I want to do this wrap up a little bit different. Instead of just saying what I thought of the book, I want to give you reasons on why you should read this book. So really recommend them to you. And I truly believe that just because I like a book doesn't mean you will like it, or because I didn't like it, you won't like it as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the book's about and also what I thought of the book, but mostly I want to tell you why you should read this book. In the month of March, I read 6 books. I will talk about them in the order I read them, although some of them kind of overlapped, but that's not a problem. The first book I read in March was this compilation of fairy tales that I told you about in another video. It's called Fairytales in the Original Versions. So it's filled with well-known fairy tales in the actual original version, so from Hans Christian Andersen or Charles Perrault and the Brothers Grimm, and people like that we know the names, but also some others that are not as well known. There are very famous fairy tales here, so Sleeping Beauty, which has 2 versions, the oldest Italian version and also the Grimm Brothers version. Very, very creepy. Beauty and the Beast also, although they say here in a footnote that there is another older version of Beauty and the Beast, but because it's longer, they selected another version of the tale. And Little Mermaid, which the ending is very different from the Disney version. What else? Little Red Riding Hood. But there are a lot of tales in here. All of these popular and rare versions of the fairy tales. I really enjoyed reading this book and seeing the origin of the fairy tales that we know about mostly from Disney. They're very creepy, as you would expect. It's really cool. So this is a Brazilian book, but of course all the fairy tales are public domain. You can find them all online. If you like fairy tales, I really recommend this book. If you are Brazilian, this edition is absolutely gorgeous. It's filled with illustrations from all the fairy tales. Well, not all, but a lot of them. And I really recommend to check this out. So another reason that I think you should check out this book is because of Aladdin. So the original version of Aladdin is in here and the movie's coming out, so what better time to pick it up? I really recommend it. The original version of Aladdin is very different from the Disney version, but I really enjoyed it. It's kind of has a base in there, it has a genie and all, but it's very different. It's really cool. It's not as exciting actually, but it's just, you can see why it's the origin story of Aladdin. Another thing that is really interesting with this book is that you can see how different countries were telling kind of the same story at the same time, but in a different context. So some of the tales you see like, oh, this kind of sounds like Cinderella, but it's not the actual Cinderella, it's just another person in another country that was telling that same story to children. Although I do not recommend children to read this book. It's very creepy. It's not a book for kids. The reasons I would say you should not read this book maybe is if you don't like fairy tales, I guess. If you don't like short stories, if you're just not interested in that. Other than that, I have no reason why you shouldn't read this book. You really should. My experience with it wasn't as great as I expected, and I feel like it was because I read the whole book at once. So I just read one tale after the other in the order they are in the book, and they just all mixed in my head. By the end I didn't remember anything anymore. So I would recommend to just pick a few tales and read them all separately. Hi. Oh my god. You wanna meet my cat? Say hi. Okay, oh no. She didn't like that. The second book I read in March was City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. So this is a book I started, it was on my TBR for January, and I finished it in March. Okay, I was moving to another country and all, but still, and it is a kind of long book, but still, it shouldn't have taken me so long to read this book. I was so ready to love it, and I didn't so much. This book is about a girl called Nari. She counts people for a living, but she doesn't want to do that anymore. It's something that she's good at, but she doesn't want to do that anymore. And she does have a talent for healing people, and she just wanted to be able to do that for a living and learn how to read, because she doesn't know how to read. She doesn't have a family, so in one of her little con tricks during exorcism for girls, she's actually Ali pretending she's doing the exorcism because she doesn't believe in that stuff. She accidentally summons a jinn. He comes and tells her about this whole new world that she never thought existed, she never believed before. All this mythology and all this fairy tales even that she heard when she was little. He tells them they're all true, and there's this hidden city that they should go there. Because also there are some really bad demon-like creatures after them. So they go on that adventure. The second perspective in this book is from Ali. He's the prince of this city. It's called Daevabad. It's a very political point of view. He is doing some things hidden from his father that his father wouldn't agree, and he just has to live with that. So at some point, both points of view will meet, then you can see what happens. I think it took so long for me to read this book because the pacing is just off for me. The beginning takes so long. Half of the book, they are still traveling to Daevabad, like Nari and the Jinn. And then the last half of the book, which is for me the most interesting part, goes really fast. I really liked Ali as a character. He's very interesting. His motivations were much more clear to me than Nari's. I think her motivations were kind of questionable. However, I liked her perspective better because I was just so confused about what was happening in the politics and everything. There are so many names to remember, so many tribes, so many different creatures that I really got lost. And I'm glad I finished this book. It's very interesting, but I'm not super excited to pick the sequel. However, I will give you some reasons on why you should read this book, because I know a lot of people loved it. This is some people's favorite book, so I think you should pick it up. And the reasons why I think you should read this book are, first of all, the world. So the world building in this book is so different from what we're used to. There are a lot of jinns and ifrits, and she describes ifrits in this book, but I could only think of the ending boss from Final Fantasy 15. That's what the ifrit was in my head. There are magic carpets and fire magic. It's a really interesting world. I really wish the magic was explored more in the world. It was not as much as I expected, but it's a really cool world. And the second reason I will give for you to read this book is, again, Aladdin. Aladdin is one of my favorite movies from Disney from when I was a child. And the first time the magic carpet showed up in this book, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be awesome. It's not based on Aladdin, of course, but there are jinns and there are magic carpets. So I really think you should pick this book up. It's just like preparation for Aladdin, which has nothing to do with this book. But there are similar things from this book and Aladdin, and I'm excited. So you should read this book, although it wasn't my favorite, it could be yours. The third book I read in the month of March was Perfect Days by Raphael Montes. It's a very short book. He's a Brazilian author. I talked a little bit about him in my other video. This book is about a guy called Theo. He's in college, he's studying medicine, and he's a psychopath. Although that's never really stated in the book, but it's implied that he's a psychopath. And he gets obsessed with this girl called Clarissa that he met on a party. And that's all I'm gonna say. I recommend you don't look the Goodreads description for this book because there's one tiny thing there that's, for me, it would be a huge spoiler. I hadn't read that before. I just read the synopsis in the book, which was good, so I don't recommend you read that. This book was translated to English, so you can find it to read in English. I really enjoyed this book, especially because it's told the perspective of the psychopath. It gave me You vibes. So if you have read You by Caroline Kepner, or if you have watched a Netflix show, I just watched the show, I didn't read the book. The whole time I was reading the book, I was just picturing Tel as Joe from You. That's what he looks like in my head now. And I actually went on Goodreads when I was just starting this book. There's so many details in the beginning that's exactly like You, at least for the TV show. Both books, Perfect Days and You, were released on the same year, like months apart. So it's really weird that they're so similar. I've heard awesome things about the book You. I absolutely adored the show. If you have watched the show You, maybe wait a few years to read this book because it's very similar and you can't help it but compare both of them, and I like You better. But this is really good. It was really creepy to see everything from the perspective of the guy who's obsessed with her, he's stalking her. It's very creepy, it's gross, it's disgusting. It's a horror book. I don't think I said that. It's a thriller horror novel, so expect creepy things. Although it wasn't my favorite, especially because I compared to You so much. The reasons why I think you should read this book are if you have not watched You and have not read the book You, first of all, this is very well written. It is very creepy, and it's told by the perspective of the psychopath, which is not something you see a lot. I will say that the ending did disappoint me a little bit, but the whole story, the way it's written, I think it's really cool, and you should read this book. The fourth book I read in the month of March was Norse Fairytales in the original version. Well, it's called The Best Norse Fairytales. This is a companion book to this one, of course. They're supposed to look gorgeous in your bookshelf. This is a compilation of Norse fairytales. One thing that this book has that the other one doesn't, that's really cool, is that it tells a little bit of the story about the authors in the beginning. So I read each author separately. I read the story, the brief story of the author, and then I read his or her fairy tales. One thing that I didn't like so much about it was that especially a couple of authors had very similar fairy tales. So it was the same story told again and again in different, not even different contexts, the same woods, the same country, just different characters. So one was a king, and one was a peasant, and one was a troll, and one was a witch, but everyone encountered something that was going to happen 3 times, and they all happened 3 times. There was one story that the 3 times things happened 3 times. This was a lot. I think that could have been edited a little bit more, so there are not so many tales that were basically telling the same thing. This is the only criticism I have of this book, because I really enjoyed it. With this one, the same as with the other one, it was really cool to see that some stories were being told in different countries at the same time. My favorites were, well, I will probably say this wrong, but it's kind of like Peer Gynt. It's also a famous play from what I googled, and the original fairy tale is here, and I thought it was really cool because it makes no sense whatsoever. It's very Alice-like for me, which I love, so really enjoyed that tale. And the other one that I really enjoyed was the one about changelings. Last year I watched Troll Hunters on Netflix, and it was my favorite show of the whole year. Just having trolls and changelings was really cool to see. So I related a little bit more because I knew something else about that specific theme. There are a lot of trolls, so you really should read this book. This is, again, it's also a gorgeous book filled with illustrations that I can't find any now. It's really pretty. And also, this is a Brazilian book. This is not published in English, but these are fairy tales. They are public domain. So if you like fairy tales, look for Norse versions of fairy tales. They're really different from the other European fairy tales that we are more used to. The last 2 books I read in the month of March were my favorite books of the year, maybe? I think so, which I'm very excited about. The 5th book was A Monster Calls by Patrick Ness. The concept of the story is originally by Sylvain, probably said that wrong. Patrick Ness finished her book because she wasn't able, because she passed away. And he was invited to finish this book, and he writes a note in the beginning of the book. The book already starts heartbreaking because of his note. This story, it was so adorable and so heartbreaking, and I loved it so much. So I have a lot of tabs here, and red are for things that I really loved. It's like even like their quotes or things that happen. Blue are for sad things. It's a really sad book. Orange is for funny things. So there's one funny thing that happened here. It's in the beginning. The rest is all sad. This book is a story of a 13-year-old boy whose mom is dying, and he gets a visit by a monster who is not the monster he was expecting. So he has this nightmare over and over, and when the monster appears, he thinks it's his nightmare again and not the actual monster. And the monster comes to tell him 3 stories. And that's, again, all I'm gonna say about this book. This is a book about how humans are complex creatures and how he has to learn that. I finished this book and I loved it. I gave it 4.75 stars. The one reason I didn't give it 5-star was because I watched the movie right after, the same day I finished this book, and one of the characters wasn't in the movie, and because she wasn't in the movie, I realized she didn't need to be in the book. So, I don't know, maybe it should be a 5-star, I guess, but it's not perfect. After I finished this book, I went on Goodreads to try to find bad reviews for this book, so I could give you reasons why you shouldn't read this book. And the things that I read was that people didn't relate to it. Other reasons were I don't even remember. But most reviews are amazing. I had this book already on my wish list, but after I saw a video from Emily on Books on It with Emily Fox, that she said she cried reading this book, I just wanted to read it even more. So I went in expecting a sad book, but it's told in such a beautiful way. The stories that the monster tell are probably my favorite fairy tales I read this month. They're not fairy tales exactly, but they sound like them. It's very weird. The ending just makes so much sense. I really recommend. It's a really sad book, so don't read it if you don't want to be sad. But the characters are amazing. Connor and his grandma are just so real. You just can't help but feel bad for them and just want to help them and say that, yeah, it's okay that they're feeling that way. And the monster is an awesome character. He's there for a purpose and he doesn't care what else is happening, although he actually does, if you think about it in the end. It's a really short book, so they're not super well developed. It's a tiny story about one specific moment in someone's life that's very beautifully written. Also, this edition at least is illustrated, so there are a lot of really beautiful illustrations in here, and I really recommend it. I also watched the movie after I read the book. They're very similar. The screenplay for the movie was written by Patrick Ness, so they're very, very similar. But I do recommend the book and the movie. The last book I read in the month of March was a book that I read the whole thing last night, and it was The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. This is a really short story. It's like 100 pages. I read it on Kindle because I started the sample of it and I really needed to finish it. It's a story of a man who's taking a test to be a UK citizen, and the test goes somewhere that you wouldn't expect. Everyone says this feels like Black Mirror, and I agree so much with that. So this is a Black Mirror episode written in a novella format or short story. I also gave this 4.75 stars because I read it so fast, and of course there are a few problems with it, but it's so well written and it makes you think, and it's creepy, and at the same time it's addictive. I really recommend you read this book if you like Black Mirror. That's the best recommendation I can give about this book. Another really cool thing about this is that it has a lot of psychological and mathematical theories inside this book. He explains them very well, although I did have to look them up. As I was reading on my Kindle, I could just tap the word and it would look on Wikipedia for me. So I did that a few times, but just because I wanted to know absolutely everything and really understand it, but it's not necessary. The one maybe reason you shouldn't read this book is, again, if you don't like Black Mirror, or because of the psychological and mathematical theories that are in here. They're not the main part of the book. It really shouldn't make you not read the book, but I really recommend it. It was really, really, really good. And really short. It's 100 pages. Just pick it up. These were all the books I read in the month of March. I hope you found something that you're interested in reading, because that was my goal for this video, was to help you find a book to read. So thank you so much for watching. Comment down below if you found a really cool book that you haven't read before, or if you have read any of these books, what you thought about them. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, if you want to see more content from me, and click the bell icon so you can get notifications whenever I post new videos. And thank you so much for watching. Bye!